What if we're not alone, not in distant galaxies, but right here, inside our own solar system? What if one of Jupiter's moons, frozen on the surface, hides an ocean with life beneath? Today, we explore one of the most fascinating mysteries in astronomy, the possibility of life on moons like Europa or Enceladus. For decades, we've looked to the sky in search of alien life. But perhaps the answer is closer than we think, not on distant exoplanets, but on the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Astronomers have already identified dozens of celestial bodies with promising signs, and among them, Europa stands out. The question now is no longer whether water exists beyond Earth, but could something be living within it? A solar storm occurs when the Sun ejects massive amounts of radiation and particles during a coronal mass ejection, CME. These particles travel through space and, upon hitting Earth's magnetosphere, cause electromagnetic disruptions. The consequences range from spectacular auroras to failures in satellites, GPS, aircraft systems, and electrical grids. The time between a solar blast and Earth impact can be just a few hours. Satellites are extremely vulnerable to solar storms. They can suffer communication blackouts, system failures, and even total destruction. GPS, satellite internet, and TV signals would be affected instantly. Astronauts in orbit would face dangerous levels of radiation. With systems down, the modern world would freeze. In a single day, billions could lose access to global communication and digital navigation. If the storm is strong enough, like the Carrington event in 1859, entire power grids could collapse. Transformers would explode, cities would be plunged into darkness, and energy systems would fail in a chain reaction. A global blackout could last for weeks or even months, as damaged infrastructure would take time to repair under extreme conditions. Hospitals, water supplies, and food distribution would fail along with everything else. With communications down and navigation systems offline, planes would lose contact with control towers, and ships would lose their coordinates. The risk of collisions, dangerous reroutes, and emergency landings would skyrocket. Many flights would be grounded as a precaution, but those already in the air would face intense uncertainty. A world without GPS is a world literally lost, and global logistics would suffer irreversible damage. Within hours, social media, phone communication, and the internet would go offline. Banks would freeze, transfers would become impossible, and ATMs would fail. With everything digitized, we'd lose access to money, records, and essential services. A severe solar storm could disconnect the entire planet, not just technologically, but emotionally. The sudden silence on our screens would spark panic and a global sense of isolation. Modern hospitals rely heavily on constant power and connectivity. Without electricity, data, or functioning equipment, surgeries and ICUs would shut down. Life support machines would stop without warning. Digital medical records would vanish. Medicine distribution would collapse. People with chronic conditions like diabetes or hypertension would face deadly complications. Healthcare would descend into chaos, forcing doctors to work as if it were the 1800s. With communications, traffic control, and power down, cities would fall into disorder. Without traffic lights, subways and trains would halt. Elevators would trap people inside. Looting and riots would erupt amid the uncertainty. Governments wouldn't respond fast enough, and social control would crumble. The lack of information would fuel collective panic. In just hours, metropolises could turn into scenes of complete collapse. The modern world is interconnected. A solar storm knows no borders, it strikes the entire planet. Developing nations with weaker infrastructure would suffer the most. Military communications would go dark. Spy satellites would be blinded. Gas pipelines, airports, and rail systems could fail. Even food production might halt. A massive solar event could reshape global geopolitics in a matter of days, sparking crises far beyond the skies. Studies show the sun goes through intense activity cycles, and we're heading into a peak. A Carrington-level storm today would cause trillions in damages. But what if something even stronger comes? With so many satellites, interconnected systems, and dependency on electricity, we're more vulnerable than ever. The real danger isn't just immediate collapse, it's the fact that we are utterly unprepared to survive disconnected from the grid. With power grids collapsed, the race for energy would become a top priority. Diesel generators would be worth their weight in gold. Solar panels and batteries would gain unimaginable value. Cities might divide into zones with restricted access to power. Energy autonomous sites, like protected nuclear plants, would become fortresses. Society would enter survival mode. And our evolved digital age would become a new kind of electrical dark age. Even if systems were restored after the event, trust would be broken. Who could guarantee another storm wouldn't strike tomorrow? Banks, governments, and corporations would reevaluate protocols. A global movement toward decentralization would grow. Our extreme dependence on technology would be questioned. For the first time in ages, the entire world would look to the sky not with hope, but with fear. Amid the chaos, solutions would emerge. Radiation-resistant technologies, isolated backup systems, and decentralized power grids would be developed. Some communities would live more autonomously and analogically. Humanity would learn from the trauma, as it did with earthquakes, pandemics, and wars. A new era would rise, one that's more resilient and less dependent on fragile satellites. We would be forced to evolve through pain. The good news is that with advanced solar monitoring, we can predict many storms up to 12 hours in advance. But that's not always enough. Scientists are working on better shielding for satellites and stronger energy grids. Still, current investments are timid. Knowing the threat is the first step. The second, and most urgent, is acting before the sun proves us wrong. The sun is a symbol of life. Without it, nothing could exist. But like every force of nature, it makes no promises. It can create and destroy. Solar storms are not fiction. They've happened before, and they will happen again. The question isn't if, but when. And when it does, will we be ready? Or will we have forgotten that our entire civilization depends on a star, unpredictable, distant, and silently burning 150 million kilometers away? The universe is bigger than we can comprehend. And its mysteries are only beginning. Every day, a new video awaits you here. If you're drawn to the unknown, then you're in the right place. Subscribe, and keep exploring the dark side of the cosmos with us.